This week on Women's Wellness Authority, I'm sitting down with the warrior who raised me, my mom. Nearly 35 years ago, she fought for my brother's health in a world that dismissed her intuition and labeled her a bad mom. In this powerful conversation, she shares how trusting her gut, seeking alternative paths, and refusing to give up what shaped both our family's journey and my own path into wellness. Join us. Women's Wellness Authority is your go-to podcast for discovering the hidden gems of holistic health and well-being. In each episode, we dive deep into the many layers of wellness, from mental and physical health to spiritual growth. Through insightful interviews with experts, healers, and thought leaders, we uncover alternative approaches, healing practices, and fresh perspectives that empower you to transform your life. Whether you're seeking innovative ways to heal your body, your mind, or nourish your soul, this podcast offers practical tools and wisdom to help you thrive in all areas of your life. Let's rewrite the rules of wellness together. Step into your power, reclaim your health, and discover what it means to truly thrive from the inside out. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Season 2 of Women's Wellness Authority. I'm your host, Diana Ruskowski, and today's episode is incredibly personal. It's the story of the woman who shaped not only my childhood, but also the foundation of why I do the work I do today, and that's my mom, Janet Pawul. Nearly 37 years ago, my mom found herself in uncharted territory. With no internet, no Facebook groups, and very few doctors willing to listen, she was left to navigate the unknown while raising a child whose health seemed to unravel before her eyes. She was told she was wrong, ridiculed, and labeled difficult, but she refused to give up. My mom's story begins in a traditional home where she learned perseverance, resilience, and faith. She always dreamed of being a mother, and after marrying her childhood sweetheart, my dad, she embraced mainstream medicine and rules she thought she was supposed to follow. But when my brother Timothy came along, everything changed. His health challenges became the teacher that shifted her path and ignited a passion she never expected: to question, to search, and to forge a new way forward. She became a warrior mom, a truth seeker, and eventually a healer, spending 17 years sharing her gifts through reflexology, energy work, and holistic health. Guided by faith and intuition, she not only helped Tim grow into the strong, healthy man he is today, but also touched countless lives along the way. This is a story of resilience and faith and a mother's intuition that simply could not be silenced. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on that journey, the struggles, the turning points, the lessons, and the legacy it created, not only for our family, but for generations to come. So welcome, Mom.
Welcome. Thank you very much for that beautiful introduction. And I'm so excited to bring this story forward as something that I don't do very much anymore, but I did very much many years ago. So
I'll share with the listeners too, in preparing for this call, there were a lot of things that I learned. When all of this was really happening, I was 7 or 8 years old. So a lot of these details, I don't remember. So this has been a great journey to prepare and record this today with you. So I'm honored. So for context for the listeners, I'm the oldest of 3 kids. Then came my sister Danielle and our youngest, my brother Timothy. So Mom, I'd love to start by going back to the very beginning. Before Tim was born, what did health and wellness look like in our family? And also then during your pregnancy, because you mentioned that things really felt different the third time around than they did with both me and Danielle.
Well, I was brought up in a traditional background. So I went to a pediatrician, found a pediatrician. We followed the protocols of what the doctors expected, come for your first month visit, 2 months, 3 months. And then if they said this is the time to get a vaccine, I would do it. I never thought anything about it because everything always seemed fine. And you guys, other than getting a sore leg or running a fever, which I was told was all normal, we just kept continuing on that path. I had 2 healthy pregnancies, healthy births. I never used any drugs during my deliveries. I don't know why. I guess innately, I was just had a different thinking. So
all 3 deliveries were natural?
Yes.
No drugs?
No drugs, no spinal blocks, no know anything. And, good deliveries, came home, you were fine, everything was status quo. So with Timothy, perhaps it was my third child, and I was very tired from having two small children. Danielle was 4, and you were 6, and I was always grateful because you girls were 2 years apart, that I had a little breathing room to before I had to deal with Tim. And you were actually more independent at that point. So, but the pregnancy was my most difficult. I was sick a lot. I had strep throat, I had infection. And at that time, because I had 2 small children, I even changed my regular OBGYN, the people that I were comfortable with, and I went to somebody local. And I wasn't very pleased with his care throughout my pregnancy. So I actually changed back to my old obstetrician within 10 days of delivering Tim. So it was really, that was a big decision at that time. So Tim was born 9 pounds 7 ounces, rated 10 on the APGAR scale, which is the scale that the medical doctors give at birth. So everything seemed to be normal and great. And he was, a big, healthy looking baby. He looked like he was 3 months old already. So we just moved forward. Now, I think when I went home, I think it was about 10 days later, I actually developed the flu because like I said, I had been pretty run down and throughout my pregnancy and not feeling well. So I developed the flu. It was probably one of the sickest times I've ever been. Family took care of you and Danielle, but I called the pediatrician and they said to keep Tim with me and to keep nursing him. So basically, Holly had the energy to nurse him, and I would just roll over and throw all the dirty diapers on the floor. I would change him, and on the third day, I woke up and he felt warm. So he had developed 100.5 fever. And I called my neighbor. I was not strong enough to drive or take anywhere, and she brought me to her pediatrician. And when I entered the office, they said, "You need to go immediately to the hospital because your son could die in the next 24 hours." I was not having that with everything I felt my pregnancy I went through with him. And we went to a local hospital, Stony Brook University, and he had a spinal tap, which I stayed present in the room, and they couldn't understand that, but I was not letting him out of my sight. And during that week of hospitalization, it seemed like everything went wrong. So to me, it was a foreshadowing of just showing me how sometimes the medical community can fail you. At the end of his stay, they said that they diagnosed him with pneumonia in the lower left lung. Years later, I found out, we looked at the x-rays, and indeed that was not true, but they had to send him home with a diagnosis, I guess. On the very first night that we went home, I put him on the kitchen counter and turned slightly to get something, and he actually rolled off the counter at 13 days old and fell flat on his back on the hard tile floor. So that was sheer panic. I called the doctor and I was like screaming into the phone, "Do not send me back to that hospital." So he allowed me to stay home and just watch him, for concussion or anything during the night. But that was also a foreshadowing of perhaps, how that traumatized his body and how it maybe changed his spine and created some trauma to his spine. So we fast forward through the months. His weakness always seemed to be in the lung area. He developed bronchitis. It was consistent. We went to the pediatrician 40 times in 20 months, living on antibiotics. Eventually, I said, "I'm just calling up to the office and I just want you to give me an antibiotic. Just prescribe me an antibiotic and I'll just go to the pharmacy and pick it up." So what happened is that the pediatrician was 45 minutes away. This one time we brought him and they actually gave him an inhalation treatment, which was again another trauma. He was very strong because he was big. And they literally held him down in the corner of the room and gave him that. And the doctor was pacing outside. It's almost like he knew something wasn't right. He was trying to make a decision of what to do.
And they were holding him down because he didn't want the treatment, or
Right,
they
because
had
they were
told
putting
you
a mask over his face and he was this tiny baby. So after that, I changed to a local pediatrician. This was a pediatrician I had trusted through all the years of raising you and Danielle. And the local pediatrician was no better. He diagnosed him with asthma. He gave me an inhaler, and
How old is he at this point?
he was 14 months old, and they gave him a vaccine. On that day, which was the MMR, I had actually been doing the regular vaccine schedule, again, not knowing that in an immune system that's compromised, it's going to actually even have more of an effect on his body.
Yeah, because at this point he's been on antibiotics off and on
Constantly.
since he
Right.
was born.
Right. And he wasn't sleeping through the night. I was quite sleep deprived because he woke up 4 to 6 times a night. He was very behaviorally challenged, we'll call it. I really couldn't leave the house and take him out because I really couldn't control him at that point. So, and really, I always had this feeling that this wasn't who he was supposed to be. I don't know why, because he certainly was quite challenging right from the beginning. But I guess that strong will of that baby was just fighting through. And it was a very, very challenging time for me. So at 14 months, once he got the MMR, I know that I did not follow through with the inhaler. That just didn't feel right to me. I think we did it for a couple days. And I was already starting to think about that these things are not right. But I didn't know where to go. I had always gone to traditional pediatricians.
So at that 14th month visit, he was already sick off and on. You got the booster for the MMR, and you said you saw a turning point or you saw him change. Can you kind of indicate or share with the listeners what behaviors you noticed?
Yes, beyond his difficult behavior and the not sleeping, he became nonverbal. He would stiffen. I was really the only one that could handle him. He would stiffen his whole body, like he just didn't want to be touched. And he became vacant. He just kind of went somewhere. And for the next 6 months, basically, we stayed in the house. It was difficult to bring him anywhere because he was literally out of control. So I was recommended to go to different pediatricians. I went, one of the pediatricians actually criticized me and said that I was a bad parent. And I knew that wasn't true because I had these two beautiful, well-behaved girls at home. And she basically kind of asked me to leave the office because he was being pretty destructive. We started going to another doctor who was actually a blood specialist. No one ever mentioned anything about diet. To this point, he was living on carbs. He would only eat cereal. He craved it. So this last doctor that we went to, last pediatrician, he actually would never give me answers either. And I guess I never gave him another vaccination. Again, I must have intuitively known at that point not to do anything further. And I was just incessantly talking and just searching and talking to friends and people I met. And just, again, I really always say that I was on the edge. I would nervous breakdown because I hadn't been sleeping. I was trying to deal with all these things.
Well, and
So
you're also being told that you're wrong, that you don't know what you're doing. And I can imagine maybe he's fine or he's not fine, but we don't have
but
answers.
he was fine because he was 100% on the growth chart, because his weight was a certain thing. That nothing about anything else. That's all they cared about, is their statistics.
Yeah, but you knew deep down, I know you had said to me, you knew this is not who he was meant to be. And so that's what kept you pushing to searching and that then seeked sort of an alternative option, right?
Yes, that's true. And I actually ended up being at a friend's house and meeting an acquaintance, which I had many years before. And she suggested we go see this chiropractor, that her children had been under chiropractic care since birth. And this was a foreign thing to me. I'd never known anything about chiropractic. And that's the day that we met Mark. Dr. Mark was life-changing. I was quite difficult. I told him that he was, I really basically told him he was a quack. And he asked someone to take Tim out of the room. And he said, first, we need to adjust you.
He's taking care of the caretaker, right? I think it goes back to the principle of when I talked in my postpartum episode, where it's not just about the baby, it's about the mom. And if you can't
Right.
take care of yourself, you can't take care of your children. And so he recognized that you were suffering, not just your child. And in order to help him, he had to help you. So I think,
That's important.
yeah.
And I would also say he was the first person that took time to listen to me. And that spoke volumes to me. So I was going to follow regardless. I was going to follow up on this. But actually, Tim got adjusted that day as well. I got adjusted. I had never experienced anything like that. We went home and he actually was calmer. And I started telling people about it. I was so excited because it was the first time I had seen any change. And people and family and everything just kept telling me I was going to ruin his life, that he was going to have to be under chiropractic care for the rest of his life. And that was bad decision. So I believe I waited 10 days and there was the cycle of sickness, as I called it, because that's what had happened during those months before. 7 days on an antibiotic, 3 days off, back sick again, showing symptoms. So I just said, okay, that's it. I'm going back. I don't even have to tell anybody. I'm going to do what I feel is right because it's the only thing that I saw that made a difference. And from that point on, I probably visited Dr. Mark's office every single day because Tim would get adjusted and he would go home and he would sleep. Even if it was just during the day, he would sleep. And in the meantime, Mark was educating me about chiropractic and how what we call a subluxation and interference and impingement on the nerves in the spine, on the central nervous system, can really affect the body. So when we go back to a birth that he was delivered on a flat surface at almost 10 pounds, that he could have created that subluxation within the spine, falling off the counter and falling flat on his back, that could have caused that, so many different things.
Well, you had a lot of variables that you were dealing with, right? It was the constant sickness, the falling, the flu, the incubation, the spinal tap he got, the
constant antibiotics.
Yep.
But
which you and I both know too, being constantly on antibiotics absolutely kills your gut lining, which naturally contains most of the immunity in the body. So if you're destroying your gut lining and you're not taking a probiotic, you can't because it's killing good bacteria and bad bacteria. And then if you're going through that cycle you just said, so every 7 days
yeah, he
you're
was
on it.
constantly. Well, I also found out at a later time that antibiotics doesn't leave the body for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
So basically, like he lived on amoxicillin. So later learning too that amoxicillin has red food dye in it, and it also can cause insomnia. So for children that have this compromised immune system and were presenting symptoms like him, again, later learning that these are things that can really affect people, children with compromised immune systems. And like you said, I didn't know to take probiotics. I didn't know anything I didn't know any of these
there's
things.
no nutritional portion of
Right.
anything.
And doctors are not trained in that way. So they do not highlight and talk about nutrition.
You were
It's still the fact, right? In allopathic medicine.
And you were just doing what you thought was best, which is bring him to the pediatrician and get him healthy, give him the antibiotics, but it wasn't actually getting to the root cause of what was going on. So the chiropractic care seemed to at least quiet his nervous system. But I know you said at some point he kind of plateaued.
Right. But after about 4 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, he started sleeping through the night fully, which was giving me a time to rest and recharge. But we started in September, and I think it was about January that I went to Mark and I said, okay, he has come to a point where he's plateaued. I can't go back to the old way. What can I do to be, add to this success? So he suggested my lifetime mentor. Her name is Wanda, and she is a naturopath. And I went to see her, and she then kind of took over. I always stayed under chiropractic care and actually became a patient advocate in the office and speaking to a lot of mothers, started a group that was called Passion for Life. And it was to educate other people, other patients that were interested, then attracted a group of mothers and I just always wanted to share because I was so passionate about the learning and the journey that we were on, that, how can I help change other people's lives? So anyway, we went to Wanda, and she was the one that told me that it was the rubella part of the vaccine, which was not the normal thing. I believe it was always pertussis that most kids have the reaction to.
And sorry, just the rubella part of the vaccine or the pertussis, those are ingredients in the vaccine?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Measles, mumps, and rubella. And
So she was able to identify. And at this point with his chiropractic care, was he still sort of vacant, nonverbal?
oh no, you saw the things gradually. And we did traditional speech therapy to help bring out, and actually he was always very smart. He was actually wasn't being honest. He wasn't being forthright with the speech with therapists. So he would lead the speech therapy, not say anything hardly throughout the entire session. But when he went home, he'd start talking to me and telling me full sentences, and I saw him improving. And at a certain point, I said to her, "I don't know why I'm coming here anymore. He's communicating with me beautifully at home." And again, traditional thinking, but also to see the potential in this child to kind of play games, and really how smart he was. So another validation that we were going in the right place. Yeah, so Tim was like, over 3 now. We were making gradual changes throughout. We were still seeing things to improve. He actually started kindergarten, and there was always things that were presenting themselves that needed to be addressed. And I did have now this support team around me, and I would ask and I would continue. I was now being introduced to different people that had different thoughts. And we did not have the internet then. We did not have the information that you have on the internet to reach out. So it was a slower process. And I was encouraged not to speak about non-vaccinating. At that point, it
Yeah,
was
at this point, it's the early 90s, so very, very
right.
long time ago. I can't imagine how isolating it feels to be going through this experience and then being told by people you respect, like doctors, that you don't know what you're doing, how completely isolating that must have made you feel, and how lost and frustrated because something's wrong, but you're not getting to the root cause of what was going on with Tim. I would say maybe my question to you is what were through all of that, what were your hardest challenges that you faced in being an advocate for him?
Well, the fact that I never challenged any authority, uh, you know, the
Like your whole
basic
entire life.
my whole entire life, and I was always looked to please people, especially adults. As a child, it was like you were a child and you were seen but not heard. It's not the way children are nowadays where they speak up. And so that was kind of ingrained in me. So coming to the point where I'm in my early 30s now, and I needed to challenge all those things. But I would say that when I met Dr. Mark, he really encouraged me to think outside the box. And I was actually kind of confused because I kept saying, what is going on here? Who is this person? Who is this person that's just opening up my whole thinking. And he was very encouraging. He was the president of the New York Chiropractic Association, and he pushed me. He had me speak at big venues.
These are the things that I can remember as a young child. I can
Yeah.
remember Passion for Life, that group you started with the moms, and I can remember not fully understanding what you were doing, but knowing that you were getting in front of groups of people and sharing our brother's, what was going on with our brother. I can remember those things.
So I would say through the years, what I did learn, because at the time, because chiropractic was the initial pivot, that I thought at the time that it was only about chiropractic and that chiropractic could heal everybody. And that's really was his mission, because he was very active and spoke. And when we actually they would have conventions to educate and really, spread the word. So
But you learned that that wasn't the case, right? There was so much
I
more out
learned
there.
I
Mhm.
learned. So then I was introduced to different things. I was introduced to, herbologies, to supplements, to homeopathics, to energy medicine, to hands-on healing, to acupuncture. There were some other things that I had been introduced to during that time, and I was trying different treatments because I wanted to complete the journey and I wanted to learn, and I would always share it. I was, which I believe all three of our children have the gift of networking.
Mhm.
That was really the way I spread the word, and I would say I was quite successful at it. I actually everybody I knew had to go visit Dr. Mark at one time or another, just because the story was so powerful. They really
Yeah.
wanted to
Well, and
see what
it changed the course of your life, and it changed the course of my brother's life. And, I think it's important to state now too, Tim, who's 36 years old, has a really, really successful job, is
company.
crea well, yeah, but I'm saying he's an entrepreneur. He's started multiple company. He's really successful, has a beautiful wife and 2 great kids, and I think it's all because of the work that you put into as a mom and the fighting that you did for him that allowed him to heal his body to be where he is today. So I have a question. Like, looking back on everything that happened now, do you wish you had trusted or acted sooner and intervened sooner in his care or
Well, I would say part of me wants to say yes because we wanted to save him from some of the pain and everything that we both went through. But I believe it was really part of the journey. And that's what gave me the passion to, to fight so hard and gave me that inspiration to keep moving forward and, which again changed both our lives.
I was gonna say, and then maybe we'll transition into then what came out of all of that for you is I think what's so powerful about this story is that it changed Tim's life, but it changed yours. And so for caring for him really opened the door into you becoming a healer and really creating your own path of discovery and all the modalities that you ended up learning that you not only passed down to us, but that you passed on to others to impact their lives the way that Tim's life was impacted. So, can you talk maybe a little bit about that? How over time maybe your understanding of health and healing evolved? Your part of the journey?
Well, I would say because of the impact of chiropractic and I was so passionate about it, I did actually go back and do my undergraduate work to go to chiropractic school. That was not meant to be. But one day, actually, in Dr. Mark's office, in one of the waiting rooms, waiting for him to come in, I heard a very small, still voice, and it said, "You have the healing hands." And that is probably the decision that spurred me to pursue chiropractic, the undergraduate studies for chiropractic. But what happened was when that wasn't going to come into fruition, spontaneously, during my Passion for Life group, one of the women that I had speak, she was a hospice nurse, and she had us do reflexology on each other. And oh my, this challenged me to a point because I really didn't like feet my whole life. And
I
I
don't
really
either. It's a
I
running joke with my friends.
I couldn't even touch feet. I couldn't look at feet. I didn't, but we did it, and we did it on each other, just, just a small introduction. So that was like a seed that she planted. And a couple years later, someone gifted me a reflexology treatment. I don't even remember who it was. And I went to who then became my teacher. And somehow I was laying on the table and she was giving me the treatment. And she said, I teach classes. I said, "You do? But oh, I wouldn't want to do this. I hate feet." And yeah, a week later, I was in the class. And the very first time that I touched feet, it was, it was like I had been there before. And it was just transformative. And, she said to me, "You're amazing at this. You have to do this." And I was like, "But I hate feet." So I completed my training. I started my practice. I graduated on Friday and I started my practice on Monday. And everybody in my class was like, "How could you do that?" I go, "I'm just going to do it." I had all this connection with these great chiropractors. I went around and interviewed, and I was given the opportunity by Dr. Ray to come into his office, and he had a space, and uh,
That's
it was
cool. I've
right.
never heard all this. This is
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
So,
There's
yeah, I
so many
just went.
parallels to what I'm doing now to
Yes. Yeah.
your story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, he was a great doctor, but frankly, here was this woman that had been talking up chiropractic for a few years already. And they saw me on the stage. They knew that I was connected with Dr. Mark. And, it was kind of a win-win because I was promoting chiropractic all the time. So to have me in their office,
It's something you still really believe in, right?
oh,
I know
absolutely.
that was a
I
staple. If we got sick, we didn't go to the pediatrician, we went
True.
and got adjusted.
Right.
We weren't given, Motrin or ibuprofen. We allowed our bodies to take care of the fever on its own. We got adjusted, and we got adjusted every single day if we were really, really bad.
Well, I have to say that Dr. Mark instilled that in me because when your brother was detoxing from even all the antibiotics, everything, every single time that he got sick, he said, "You call me." He adjusted him in cars. He adjusted him under the front desk he adjusted him in the lobby because Tim would like run around and play games, like run away from the girls. And I have to say that even the girls at the front desk in his office were afraid of Tim because he was kind of wild and crazy. But he was so passionate about believing that it could make the difference. And actually, if I had gone to another chiropractor, they probably wouldn't have treated a 20-month-old baby. So, it was, again, I believe it was our destiny to come together and be together and make that impact. But yes, I believe it's a staple of maintenance to keep your central nervous system free flowing. And at one time, I said if I was going to be living on a deserted island, I would choose a chiropractic adjustment over food. So that was a little extreme, but
That's funny.
it does. It was transformative, so it definitely had impact.
So, I guess this might answer, but if there's a core belief that you hold about healing that you didn't always have, what would that be? Given all of the access you've had to all different things.
I would say that there's not one modality that, is right for every single person. Everybody reacts in different ways. I did reflexology, just believing that working points on the feet actually interact in the body. But I found that my work was more energetic than just pressing on pressure points on the feet. People healed, people let go of things, people had major changes in their life just by us communicating and working and them feeling comfortable
Well,
and,
because you
and
also
working.
got Reiki certified too, right? So on top
Yes,
of
that
doing the reflexology, you were doing Reiki, which is a form of energy healing. And
correct.
we had a Reiki specialist on last season, and she talked a little bit about what that is. And it's an exchange of energy, right? It's helping that person's body process and balance what they need to. You probably would describe it in a little bit different way, just like every practitioner would, but
No, and those things I learned with my now mentor, Wanda, but we would call it more just energy healing, just that exchange of energy.
Mhm.
So yes, but health is layered, and I found, I then discovered that it wasn't just the physical body, but it was it was the physical, mental, spiritual, uh, and that is something that I embraced later on in my life. My spiritual life became very, very important. I'm a longtime meditator for over 30 years, so it really makes a difference. And but I would say that the biggest thing, the biggest transformation would be the fact that I learned to open up my mind and accept different experiences, different things. And you have to definitely decipher. You definitely have to decipher between different different people that you meet. Not everybody always has the best intentions. They might really feel like they know it and they know the best thing for you. So you have to really look deep inside and see what's best for you. So,
how has all the things you've experienced to date really taught you about resilience and faith and a mother's intuition?
well, like I said early on, and even when Tim was so difficult and I was so exhausted, there was just always this feeling that he wasn't meant to be living like that. And as he got a little bit older, I really felt very strongly about this little guy was meant to help change the world. And I was privileged to be part of it, part of that journey. And a lot of things, as we've gone through the years, gratitude and has been a big part of Tim's, and the recognition from yeah, gratitude is a big focus in his life,
Yeah.
and he gives back. He gives back. So,
So, one of the most important parts of this story is also how it's carried forward into my own life and work. And what has it been like for you to watch me step into this path of wellness and healing?
well, of course, it's there's just a sense of pride, and as I see you open up and develop, and of course, I've watched you through the years and how you initially discovered essential oils, which was something that I had been introduced. I've been introduced to mostly a little piece of everything throughout my life, but you really became very passionate about it after your pregnancies. How you started to make changes in your life. So this has been something that's been going on for a few years.
Yeah.
And actually was with you the weekend that we took a seminar together, and you said on the way home, I really feel very strongly that I'm not meant to continue on, in this job that I'm in. It's just not feeding my soul. And the next morning came the call from work that laid you off. And that was a major pivotal point for you because after just processing that sadness for a very, very short time, just a few days, you stepped into the power of this journey. And that's just been incredible to see and just so inspiring how you are lit up and how people react to you. It's just beautiful. And you are listening to your gut and you're following through. And I do remember how passionate I was. So I love to see that in you and how um, you're connecting and changing other people's lives. So I want to be as supportive as possible. And just, I'm very anxious to see what's going to happen in the future. You have used this media, the social media platform, and you were very comfortable with it because you were trained in the corporate world. And even during the last 40 years when you were working every day online and performing your daily duties on Zoom, you got so comfortable with
Yeah.
this way of communicating. So I was always taught by my mentor that every day is preparation for tomorrow. And when you look back at the story, that's what's great to see, to see how all the pieces fit together and how you've been being prepared for this day. So
Probably
yes,
since I was 7.
yes,
Seeing all
yes,
the things you were going through, even though I don't remember it all.
right. What's the most powerful thing is that Tim does not remember anything, any of the details. So he's anxious to hear this and how he listening to his sister, and he's very proud of you as well because he also does podcasts and speaks to the media. But you're all using this. What is it called? Media. This form of communication.
Platform?
This
The platform
this
we're
yeah.
created to, yeah.
You're all using this platform to to spread the word. And as far as Danielle's concerned, she's made decisions. Anyway, she's followed uh, a lot of the same pathways, but again in a different way.
Yeah, I think all of us have taken what we learned, and it's, I think we're all of us are always, and thank you, because all that's very beautiful. And for people who are just listening and can't see, I'm keeping it together and almost bawling my eyes out. But we each are all ever evolving. I think no matter what point you are in your life, I gotta collect myself. Hold on. And I think it's really beautiful for me to talk with you about what I'm doing and know that I'm carrying the torch and continuing on something that you started 20 years ago. And now obviously it's a totally different time, and we have access to so many people in different ways that we never had 20 years ago. And and I'm leveraging that to be able to get the word out and just want people to understand that I think it's important also that even though your story was over 37 years ago, there's so many parallels and commonalities with moms today who are dealing with the same exact stuff, but they have access, right? They have access to listen to what we're talking about today. They can go online and they can research stuff and they can connect with other mothers who are struggling. And so I think today's story is so important because it's as if time lapse did not exist, because it's just the story of you trusting your intuition and your gut and you knowing something's not right with your child and seeking answers. And everybody's journey is totally different. And everybody's solutions, I think that's a really important part of this story, is different. And what worked for Tim might not work for somebody else who is in the same exact position. But just know that your journey as a mother, yours specifically, and anyone who's listening today, is your own, and that it is okay to continue to question and to push and to
Mm,
educate and to find the people that, are out there that are going through the same exact thing as you are, and know that you're not alone, right? You felt alone 37 years ago and you still found your people. So it's just a different day and age now where it's much, much easier to find your people, but the people were there then and they're here now. So I think it's all really full circle for me, honestly, not just personally, but just to hear that your story will resonate with somebody because they're doing the exact same thing, you know, 40 years later, which is crazy to me. That there's been not too many advances also to talk about this in more detail, but a lot more is mainstream than ever from when you were looking into those things. I think essential oils, chiropractic care, acupuncture, like supplements, all those things are way more mainstream and talked about than they were in the past. Is that fair to say?
it's fair to say, but I would say the most important thing is to know that you can question and you can challenge authority. And unfortunately, Tim was vaccine injured, and we did find out early intervention is very, very important. Um, and we were very fortunate. God led us to the right people at the right time. to be able to intervene and totally undo, everything.
Yeah.
And, your body changes throughout your lifetime. And, his body is totally different now than it was, years ago. So it's just important to research. Unfortunately, they have increased the vaccine schedule by 2 to 3 times from what you 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 were brought up. And in some places, they're very very strong about the laws and everything. And we're hoping that some of those things will change and that you'll have more freedom of choice. But it's some people need to follow the rules. They need to follow. And, you were vaccinated up to a certain age before Tim. And, apparently nothing seemed to affect you. But boys are in the statistics of being more affected. I never found a reason why that was. But just to be aware, but always to see. And a couple of my grandchildren had signs early on. And I noticed it this time because of having the experience with Tim.
Yep.
I noticed it right away. And we were able to intervene and also, help them. There are homeopathic remedies that actually can remove the toxins and everything that, and the bad, the effects, to remove the effects of the vaccines.
Yeah. Which is a
So
whole nother topic or episode in itself,
absolutely.
multiple episodes, right? But
Yes.
just
Yeah.
know that just continue to seek answers. So this was a really, really great conversation. Before we end today, if another mom today found herself in the position you were in all those years ago, what advice would you give her? Anything else that we haven't covered today?
Trust your instinct. Trust that small voice of God within you that is guiding you. And don't let anybody tell you no. Just keep pushing forward and knowing that there's lots of opportunities for help and to make changes. Don't let anybody pressure you into making decisions that don't feel right for you. Uh, and that's and just question, seek. Always continue to learn throughout your life. I am still learning. I am still discovering new things. And it will make you a better advocate when you go anywhere. I've cared for relatives throughout my lifetime. My own parents had cancer. My husband, Diana's dad, had cancer, and we were able to use this knowledge and some of these remedies throughout. And they all recuperated, and there's different ways to do everything. Maybe, and it's all right. Don't judge or criticize anybody, for making the decisions that they make, because that might be right for them, and
Yeah.
that might be their journey.
Which is so
So,
important nowadays, just to,
absolutely, because you also, during your journey, you're going to feel that judgment. You're going to feel that, disdain, and there are still people that disagree with me. So, my I was taught actually to be silent and to keep things to myself. So unless you're around the right people, they say don't throw your pearls to the swine. Make sure that. But what you'll find is that you will attract people that need that help. It was always interesting, the people that walked into my reflexology office, and I wasn't big on advertising. I always worked in different places. So it was interesting who got attracted, and actually some of the front desk people would say, how do you find these people? And I said, well, God brings them to me.
Mhm.
So and it's really a beautiful exchange, because it gives you the opportunity to pass the torch and help plant seeds in other people. Sometimes you just feel like saying something to somebody. Plant the seed. Could be years later. I just had a phone call from a dear friend that we grew up with. Diana knows her. I didn't tell her about this conversation. And her daughter was treated by my naturopath 30 years ago. And this friend thought to call me about a year ago to tell me about her grandson that was having some problems. She goes, I always remembered what a difference it made in Robin's life. And, at that time, we couldn't find any answers. And she goes, you helped, can you help now? And we through Wanda, we got a protocol. And she called me the other day, just out of the blue, to just share with me what a change she's seen in him. And that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about.
It is.
We changed this little boy's life. And she said, I don't know if my daughter really realizes or is giving the right credit in the right places. I said, doesn't make a difference.
Yeah.
Dr. Mark used to say, doesn't make a difference how you heal, as long as you heal.
Yeah.
So try different things, kind of experiment. And if it doesn't work for you, move on to the next thing,
Yeah.
So.
Oh, beautiful. So hearing this story in full circle is such a gift. Thank you, Mom. It's a legacy of resilience, of faith, and a mother's intuition that could not be silenced. It's also a reminder for each of us that the choice we make, the persistence we show, and the love we carry forward can change not only our families, but future generations, like we just talked about. To my mom, thank you for being the warrior who raised me. And to all of you listening, may her story inspire you to find courage, trust your gut, and hold on to hope. Thank you, Mom, for sharing today. And listeners, thank you for joining me on Women's Wellness Authority. If today's conversation spoke to you, share it with a friend, and be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or YouTube so you never miss what's next. And if you're enjoying the show, a 5-star review means the world and helps more women find us. So until next time, stay curious, stay empowered, and most of all, stay well. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Women's Wellness Authority. If today's conversation inspired you, shifted your perspective, or sparked something within you, I'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe, leave a review, or share this episode with someone who might need it the most. Have a story of your own or something you'd like to share? I'd love to hear from you. You can connect with me on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook at Women's Wellness Authority. Please note the content shared on this podcast is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult with a qualified healthcare provider regarding your health and wellness decisions. Until next time, stay curious, stay empowered, and most of all, stay well. Thanks, everyone.